Hello, and welcome to today's Pedestrian and Bicycle Information Center webinar, Pedestrian and Bicycle Safety on University Campuses. We will be hearing from Bob Schneider, a professor of urban studies and pedestrian and bicycle transportation planning at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, Todd Henry, a transportation planner with the University of California at Berkeley, and Kathryn Zeringue, a transportation demand management coordinator with North Carolina State University. My name is James Gallagher, and I'm the PBIC Communications Manager, and I'll be facilitating today's webinar. Good afternoon, Bob, Todd, and Kathryn.
Hello. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Attendees, if you could hear me and you could hear all our speakers, if you could please click the hand icon in the upper right corner of your screen. That lets us know that our audio is working okay. All right, I'm seeing lots of hands. Before we get started, I want to run over a few administrative details about the webinar. If for some reason your computer freezes, please reload the website and log back in. You should be able to join us mid-session. We will be posting presentation slides and a recording of today's webinar on the PBIC website, so you'll be able to go back and look at anything you missed. Please note that attendees will not be able to speak during the webinar. There are a lot of people on this call, and by muting your audio, it helps us to cut down on confusion and background noise. Still, you can ask questions or report issues through the question box in your webinar control panel. Please feel free to ask questions at any time. We will hold about a 20-minute Q&A session after our presentation. Within a couple of days, you will receive a follow-up email from the UNC Highway Safety Research Center with instructions for getting your CM credits. This webinar has been submitted and approved by AICP as for 1.5 CM credits. Be sure to look out for that email. You can learn more about PBIC webinars or check out past webinars at pedbikeinfo.org/webinars. We also post frequent updates about our webinars and other webinars and research on our Facebook page at facebook.com/pedbike. You can also join our mailing list at pedbikeinfo.org/signup. I promise we won't spam you. Now, before we get to our feature presentation, I want to run 2 quick polls. First, please tell me how many participants are at your site. Give it a few more seconds. Okay, thank you. And also, please tell us a little bit about your background. A couple more seconds. All right. Thank you very much. Now let's get to our presentations. Bob, take it from here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, James. My name is Bob Schneider, and I'm an assistant professor in the UW-Milwaukee Department of Urban Planning. And this is the view outside of our building on a typical midday on campus. And I'll talk just briefly about UW-Milwaukee, but my part of the presentation is going to be a broader overview of pedestrian and bicycle safety on and around university campuses. I'll be discussing, first of all, some fundamental reasons for designing campuses for walking and biking, talking about some pedestrian and bicycle safety challenges that are unique to campuses, and then I want to highlight the Pedestrian and Bicycle Information Center's relatively new page on campus pedestrian and bicycle safety, and talk just a little bit about some of the strategies that are used to improve safety. You'll hear a lot more about detailed case study and how these have been applied when we hear from Todd and Kathryn at their specific universities, but this will give you a broader overview flavor for those types of strategies. The website that I mentioned is available, and it's part of the broader PBIC website. The page actually focuses on university campuses, and then there are a number of sub-pages that get into some of the issues that I'll be talking about in the presentation here. But first, just a quick example from UW-Milwaukee. Back in the 80s and 90s, UW-Milwaukee was really considered a commuter campus. Students, faculty, and staff pretty much drove to campus during the morning and then drove home at night, and there was a very automobile-oriented culture here. That's been changing over the last few years, similar to a number of other campuses in the broader movement throughout the country. And just one example shown in this picture is from a recent opening of a bike share station right in the heart of campus. The Bubbler bike system of Milwaukee has reached up this way. And to get the station in, the student government actually elected to have some of the student fees be used to purchase reduced fare bike share passes for all the students. They have that option as students to increase the amount that they bike and take advantage of that system, which is just one example to show that there's a broader social support for biking and walking on the university campus. That's Pounce, our mascot, Pounce the Panther, who's riding on a special UWM designed bike share bike. But maybe more importantly, sorry, I should put this into the presentation mode. More importantly, the person behind him is the Chancellor, Mark Money. And this shows some political support for these pedestrian and bicycle improvements. We have a broader vision here that is now committing to create a pedestrian and bicycle transit-oriented campus that's been established through our master plan from 2010. And we have goals to shift the types of transportation that people use to commute to campus. So really, why are campuses interested in becoming so pedestrian and bicycle friendly? Well, certainly these are major activity hubs, high employment numbers and population in terms of students living on campus. At UW-Milwaukee, we have about 30,000 people coming to campus every single day. And the buildings are usually ranged in a compact way so that the distances between one activity and another are very short. It makes sense to do by walking and biking. Students typically have relatively low automobile ownership rates, and they tend to be young, so they tend to be in good physical condition, have the ability to walk and bike fairly easily, and they also have young attitudes. They just like to travel using active transportation. Very importantly, there is scarce space on campuses, and pedestrians and bicyclists fit best in scarce space. If you ask administrators of campuses, one of the biggest issues is limitations on automobile parking. When we devote space to it, it needs to be priced very high. So, it's not going to be free to use. It's also expensive to construct parking garages that use that scarce space. So parking is always an issue, and pedestrians and bicyclists don't take up as much space. In addition, walking and biking contributes to making a great place. So this is the Memorial Glade at UC Berkeley, and it's a place where students study and groups get together and have group discussions and debates. Sometimes there are lectures when the weather is nice out there. It just creates a campus environment that fosters ideas being shared between people face to face. Imagine if this glade was filled with parked cars. And if you had a parking lot there, yeah, it'd be a lot more convenient to drive your car to campus, but you would be missing out on one of the most important aspects of being on a campus. It's not just academic either. Campuses are great places for social interaction more broadly. These are all pictures from a football Saturday at UW-Madison. There's something special to be seeing a whole bunch of other people dressed in red and seeing their faces and chanting and being at barbecues in people's front yards. That can't happen if everybody's in their car. But as we're promoting active forms of transportation, it really is essential to provide safe environments for walking and biking. Some people are still going to need to drive to campus, and they may be living far away from campus and have a long commute. the weather may not be so good at a certain time of year. They may have physical limitations. And so we need to be able to make the interactions that occur between pedestrians, bicyclists, and all forms of automobiles safe. There are a number of safety issues that we see on campuses, and some are similar to other types of areas. So there tend to be more crashes when there's more walking and biking, but the risk for each individual is lower when you have more pedestrians and bicyclists, probably because drivers tend to be more aware of the needs of of pedestrians and bicyclists, which contributes to a safety in numbers effect. Higher speeds are associated with more severe injuries. When you have multi-lane roads, there's more risk for pedestrians and bicyclists. Many of the crashes that occur in the broader community and on college campuses involve intoxication of pedestrians, bicyclists, or drivers. There are some differences from other areas. So campuses often are so concentrated that there may be no cars, but pedestrians and bicyclists mix, and sometimes there are conflicts between those two types of users. Boundary corridors are particularly important, and I'll talk more about that in a second, but that's where there are many conflicts with the automobiles and people trying to get in and out of campus. There are also some strong activity patterns that campuses experience. One is the influx of students at the beginning of semesters. Another is evening activities. Campuses often have classes and social activities and athletic activities going on into the evening hours. This often overlaps with times when it's dark out, and so that may be a higher risk time. As an example of the seasonal changes in reported bicycle crashes in this case, we see September and October being high months. This has been seen in some other campus areas. Those are key months that we might want to think about for education and enforcement related to walking and biking safety. One of the issues with the periphery around campuses is the fact that so many people who are driving are parking in the area around that campus. We don't designate lots of parking lots within the main campus, as designated here by UC Berkeley's campus, shown with a red line around it. The streets outside of that have quite a bit of the automobile parking. So people are driving to campus, but they're getting out of their cars once they find a parking spot. And then people are being dropped off by various forms of transit, including buses. This whole mix right around the campus area can create some conflicts and lead to pedestrian and bicycle crashes. Using Berkeley as an example, when I was at UC Berkeley Safe Trek, we did an analysis of crashes in that area, and we mapped out all the crashes across the city of Berkeley, and then just focused in on the main campus area and the surrounding for 3 or 4 blocks. We found that though this area shown on the map highlighted in black represents only 6% of the city, 25% of the pedestrian crashes occurred there. Similarly, it was a concentration of bicycle crashes as well. So these interactions that are occurring very close to the campus are a key area to focus on for pedestrian and bicycle safety. There are a number of methods that we can use to look at safety problems, and these are highlighted on the PBIC website. Some of them are standard methods that communities will use: safety audits, crash mapping of concentrations or hot spots, looking at different crash types, and then estimating how many crashes may occur if a certain type of treatment is done using crash modification factors. But there are also a number of innovative methods that campuses have developed, and they have taken advantage of some of the researchers who wanted to try something new and explore new methods. And so I'll give you a few examples. Back when I was doing my master's degree at UNC Chapel Hill, I worked at the UNC Highway Safety Research Center, and we looked at the concentration of reported pedestrian crashes, and we could see some clusters of those. But we also wanted to see where people might perceive risk to be around the campus area. And that actually pointed to some other types of locations on the campus that people are perceiving risk and therefore maybe should be looked at for pedestrian safety improvements. And in that way, we could do some proactive type treatments that would help prevent future crashes. Researchers from UC Berkeley SafeTrek, Sacramento State, and UCLA took that idea a step further in some of their recent analysis. They mapped out the locations of reported crashes, shown in red on this map of the UCLA campus. They also mapped out perceived risky locations, shown in purple and yellow on this map. But they also did an online survey to ask students, faculty, and staff about where they may have actually been involved in a crash. And those are shown by the blue dots. And you can see that the blue dots actually don't necessarily match up with where the reported crashes are. So this is just another way to get at some information that's really hard to get through standard sources. Another type of method is to take a look at crash rates. And in our study of the UC Berkeley campus periphery, we looked at the 4 boundary corridors around campus in particular. And crashes over the previous 10 years, we mapped those out. And along Bancroft Way on the south side of campus, there were the most crashes, so 29 experienced over that time. But we wanted to understand a little bit more about the exposure to those crashes. And so we collected counts at intersections along the boundary roadways and then extrapolated those counts out to a 10-year estimate of the number of crossings of that corridor. And so we have the estimates here on this map and use that to identify where the highest risk was on each boundary corridor. So in terms of crashes per 10 million crossings. And actually the risk along Bancroft Way was the lowest among the 4 boundary roadways. Yes, there were a lot of crashes and that's important to address, but the risk per crossing was actually lower than some of the others. We did a similar analysis for the time of day of crashes along all 4 boundary roadways. And from that, we could see that the highest risk was between 6 p.m. and midnight. Those are times when we have that evening activity and darkness, and the involvement of alcohol may be higher. And so that's a factor to be, those are a number of factors to be thinking about during those high-risk periods. Another type of analysis that's been developed on campuses is to do observations of behavior. Crashes, fortunately, don't happen all that often with pedestrians and bicyclists, so it's hard to get a lot of pedestrian and bicycle data to do analysis with. We can observe behaviors to help suggest some factors, the frequency of factors that may lead to crashes. So for example, higher vehicle speeds may be associated with pedestrians getting hit. The graph at the lower left shows a speed study along various roadways around the UC Berkeley campus. And so we were able to identify some that have higher running speeds than the speed limit, and to suggest that maybe there's some roads that could have special enforcement or be designed differently so that the design speed of the street was actually lower. Other types of behaviors can be reviewed as well: driver yielding, traffic signal compliance by pedestrians, bicyclists, and drivers, and then pedestrians looking for traffic before crossing. I do want to cover just a few engineering education enforcement and evaluation strategies, though you'll hear more of them in the forthcoming presentations. The PBIC website has a really useful spreadsheet on it, and what this spreadsheet includes is dozens of plans that have been developed by various universities around the country, all compiled and their strategies organized according to these various E's. There's also a link to each plan provided so that if you're very interested in that particular plan, you can find it online. Jake Thirsk of the UNC Highway Safety Research Center compiled this list, so he spent a lot of time looking through every single one of these plans, so definitely thank him when you take a look at the spreadsheet. Just a few of the strategies that are covered in those I want to give a little summary of. Engineering treatments tend to focus on these boundary type roadways around campuses. There tend to be more crashes there, so the campus and engineers and planners are looking for ways to improve safety on there in those locations. The UC Berkeley picture up at the top is a good candidate to change this crossing. It wouldn't comply with the FHWA guidelines for marked crosswalks, so we would want to look for ways to enhance that crossing to make it safer for pedestrians. And this is actually one of the crosswalks that we recommended improvements for in our UC Berkeley safety study, and Todd's going to talk a little bit more about that later. We could make that crossing look more like the crossing on the bottom at UW-Madison, where a median refuge is provided and bike lanes are provided along the roadway. A number of other types of treatments are available, but I do want to highlight UC Davis and what they do for bicyclists. They have bicycle roundabouts on campus. If you've never been to the UC Davis campus, you should take a pilgrimage there and see how they accommodate the huge numbers of bicyclists that they have. Go there during a time between classes and see how that system operates. When you have lots of bicyclists, you also have to have very good bike parking. And so those are important aspects of engineering to be considered. I mentioned before the potential conflicts between pedestrians and bicyclists on campuses. So some campuses have enacted dismount zones for bicyclists, walk zones in other words, and those may be at certain times of day and in specific locations where there are such high concentrations of pedestrian activity that it makes sense for everybody to be on foot. In terms of engineering recommendations, it's always important to be understanding which agency is responsible, especially in these areas near the boundaries of campus. And Todd and Kathryn will talk more about this. On the education side, there are a number of innovative types of programs out there. In some cases, the campuses have worked with their local advocacy groups to help educate pedestrians and bicyclists and offer, some of the campuses offer safety courses for credit and also use social media and websites to connect with students and to offer opportunities to provide information about risky conditions and feedback in that way. It's really a good opportunity on campuses to take advantage of a captive audience for these types of safety messages. Often there is an email distribution list for an entire campus, and so that way the messages can be targeted to everyone, which is different than a much broader community that other practitioners work in. One other observation that I had from looking at the education efforts that have been done on campuses is many of them really focus on bicyclist safety, which is very important, but I think there's more opportunities to emphasize pedestrian safety. Also, from the driver's side, to emphasize the need for drivers to be aware of pedestrians crossing the street and to yield to pedestrians in crosswalks. As students who may be drivers develop their driving habits over time, it's really good to have them learn at this time of their lives to be aware of pedestrians. On the enforcement side, there are a number of innovative examples, and more are listed on the website, but I like what Berkeley does with the purple ribbons on patrol cars during Pedestrian Safety Month. This reminds people that there's increased enforcement of drivers yielding to pedestrians and crosswalks and other pedestrian-related safety issues during that month. I also like the idea that the University of Illinois uses to increase penalties for bike and ped related infractions At the beginning of the year, there are warnings, but then those are tickets later on in the year as more people should know about the laws. On the evaluation side, most campuses have good reported crash data, and so they're able to evaluate safety. And many more are getting better count data and survey data to understand how many people, how many campus students, faculty, and staff are commuting by each mode. But I think there are relatively few campuses that are collecting good data on infrastructure and how that's changing over time, as well as behaviors. And something that can be done with these types of performance measures is to report progress on regular intervals to show how behavior, infrastructure, activity, and ultimately safety are changing over time. We want to be able to document that the E types of treatments that we're using are ultimately effective. One last point that I want to make is that since these are university campus areas, there are some great opportunities to work with researchers on the campus, as well as students who are looking for class projects and looking for ways to get involved in data collection and ultimately performance measurement. And so there can be some great collaborations between city agencies and university professors and students. So with that, I want to turn it over to Todd at this point. So I'm going to try to change presenter and send it to you, Todd.
Great. Well, thank you, Bob, for giving that introduction of bike and pedestrian safety and talking a little bit about what's happened here at Berkeley. I am a physical planner on the UC Berkeley campus planning office, and most of my work focuses on transportation. I'm going to talk a little bit about our campus in general today to give you a sense of what UC Berkeley is like, talk about our planning framework that we have for bike and pedestrian safety, along with some of the challenges that go with that, and then focus in on a few specific examples, that we've implemented, particularly projects that have come out of the work that Bob and SafeTrack and other researchers have done on our campus. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the UC Berkeley campus, it's located adjacent to downtown Berkeley. The area within the yellow boundary is the campus core, what we call the campus park, where most of the academic uses are located. We're a fairly dense campus with about 50,000 people on any given day, but it only takes about 20 minutes to walk from corner to corner of the campus. On the other hand, outside of that central core, we do have a lot of other properties where we have either external research units, undergraduate residential halls, sports facilities, things like that. And so as we grow outside of the campus park, bike and pedestrian safety along peripheral roadways becomes more important. Another issue that Bob alluded to in his presentation was as campuses grow, parking often becomes a challenge because UC Berkeley is such an urban campus. Often our only places to grow for new academic cultural facilities is on our existing campus parking lots. So what you'll see on the right of the screen is at the top a picture of a parking garage that is currently being turned into the new campus art museum, which is shown at the bottom, and it will be open in January. Our bike and pedestrian infrastructure is addressed in 3 plans: our long-range development plan, our landscape master plan, and our bicycle master plan. The long-range development plan deals with land use and population, and one of the unique elements that I like about it is that it encourages new housing for students, faculty, and staff to be located in a housing zone that's defined by transit and walking distance, which is shown in blue on the left-hand side. The landscape master plan addresses mostly design, but also talks about how to address bicycle and pedestrian interactions in certain zones on the campus and at the edge. And then our bicycle master plan has been great at designating routes throughout the campus and getting bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure in place for that to happen. We do have a number of challenges. The topography of our campus is limiting in some respects. We have a creek that runs through campus, so there are only a few bridges that cross that creek, and bicycle and pedestrian interactions can be constrained. Our campus was constructed and in a way that really makes walking the preferred way to get around campus, so there are lots of mixing zones where bikes and pedestrians will travel through at the same time, and these are areas that are just as busy as our dismount zone, but don't have that restriction. We also have pinch points where different modes come together, and then a big challenge in implementing new bike and pedestrian infrastructure and addressing some of those pinch points is we have very limited parking resources, and so it becomes a balance of addressing the bikes and pedestrian safety issues and accommodating the parking issues. And the picture at the bottom shows a parking lot that is also a major path of travel for both bikes and pedestrians to the center of campus. But off campus and at the periphery is where we see our biggest challenge. Roadways along the edge of campus were designed in 1958 as part of an agreement between the city of Berkeley and the university to widen the roadway to increase traffic capacity. All these photos were taken in the middle of the day, and you'll see we have, and there's 3 edges of the campus that have multi-lane, higher speed arterial roadways. The picture on the left is a one-way street and a couplet that runs on the south side of campus. So that one-way travel also is a challenge for bicycles in particular. And similar to what Bob had mentioned, we have jurisdictional issues with implementing change on these roadways because where the university might be able to affect change behind the sidewalk, the city of Berkeley is the agency maintaining the actual roadway itself. So when we develop projects, we have 3 primary ways to implement them. Our most effective so far and what's allowed us to implement the most projects that I'll talk about a little bit later is an agreement we have with the city of Berkeley that allocates a set amount of funding each year for transportation improvements. And the nexus for that agreement was to address the transportation impacts of campus growth on our neighbors. We typically focus on projects at the periphery of campus, and we develop a 5-year expenditure plan to implement those projects. And we are often able to use this money, or we have used this money, to use this local match for larger grants and make our dollars go a little bit further. Our long-range development plan also asks that all individual projects consider bike and pedestrian access, provide bike parking, are consistent with the designs in the landscape master plan, and our long-range development plan also calls for projects to implement the pedestrian plan. And then also we have a number of other departments that can implement improvements if funding allows. And so to prioritize our projects, we really look at 4 areas. One is safety of our students, faculty, and staff coming to campus. We want to balance mobility and access, recognizing that some people will continue to drive to campus, but for sustainability reasons, for safety of others, we do encourage bike and pedestrian activity. And finally, we want to accommodate growth, and as I mentioned before, as we grow, we're often only able to accommodate more people on more efficient modes of travel. So now I'll go through a few projects that we are currently working on or have completed. So this first was a project that we worked with the City of Berkeley on. It was originally identified as mitigation for a new campus academic building about a half a block away from this site. It was a bulb out to shorten the crossing distance and improve pedestrian visibility in a signalized crosswalk in a major path of travel to that new academic building. And this was funded through our long-range development plan funding agreement with the City of Berkeley. Next, we worked with the City of Berkeley and the group that was building a new student activity center to implement a fairly substantial street improvement along Bancroft Way, which is the southern edge of campus. The building on the left of this image is the new student center that's currently under construction. It's slowly opening this semester. Originally, the plan only included adding the sidewalk back into its original condition, but through our LRDP transportation agreement with the city, we identified this as both an area where a significant number of pedestrians would be walking through. It's a major transit destination on the campus, and so facilitating transit access was important to us. And we were able to design a sidewalk extension that gave pedestrians more space and offered more space for things like transit shelters, street trees, stormwater treatment, and then we were also able to take that extra space and designate a transit lane so that buses could get through the area. This project is near that last project. The picture on the left shows the intersection before this traffic signal was installed. It was an unsignalized multi-lane crossing with some fairly fast traffic volumes. The agency building this signal was actually the transit agency. They were doing a transit reliability project and were able to fund some of the work that went into installing the signal and installed a controlled point at a major campus gateway. Hearst Avenue is the northern edge of the UC Berkeley campus. In the upper left, you can see the existing configuration of the roadway. It's a multi-lane roadway with the campus on the right and the adjacent neighborhood on the left. We started a study in 2012 with identifying some conceptual bike and pedestrian safety improvements. Once that study was completed, we applied for a grant, or we worked with the City of Berkeley and applied for a grant from a local transportation agency to actually build the project. And so for the past year, we've been refining the design concepts for that roadway, and this will be under construction in 2016. It takes the roadway from a 4-lane arterial and implements a road diet, and so there will now be 1 lane in each direction, and with turn pockets at the intersections. We're also going to implement some bicycle treatments that are innovative, particularly to Berkeley, including a parking protected bike lane along the campus edge in certain locations, a bike lane behind the transit island to minimize bike shuttle and bus conflicts at those locations. And then if you look at the lower left actually shows the crosswalk that Bob had in his presentation. This is
Hey,
another
Todd.
area. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you try to speak a little louder, please? Some people are having trouble hearing you.
Oh, sure.
Thank you very much.
This is just showing another area of Hearst Avenue, removing the free right turn lanes and putting in curb extensions to shorten the crossing distance and slow traffic speeds. As I mentioned, we also look at each of our projects and see how they can contribute to bike and pedestrian safety around the campus. This is the new art museum. They were proposing a passenger drop-off zone in front of their building. We worked with the city and identified a green bike lane as a way to address some of the conflict points in that area. So this is sort of where we are with the work that the researchers at SafeTrack had done in 2012. And a number of projects are complete or in design. And then in the next 5 years, we have several projects that are now in the planning stages to see what pedestrian and bike infrastructure we can actually consider in those areas. So really, when we look at this this plan, it really reflects sort of a 10-year work plan almost in how we've been able to actually implement some of the improvements. I also wanted to briefly mention our campus vehicle access policy. This is managed by our campus police department, and it is a plan that identifies where we allow public vehicle access through the campus and where we only allow special service vehicles or other special permit types. So the blue areas on this map are where public vehicles are generally allowed to go, and yellow represents more restricted areas or more restricted roadways on the campus, and then white reflects pedestrian and bike-only areas. So over the years, we've done a significant amount of work in restricting where vehicles can go on the campus, and in the hopes of minimizing vehicle conflicts with pedestrian and bike activity. We also have a program where students can go to a bicycle education class and get their fines reduced for certain types of infractions. And this was also a program that was in place prior to Governor Brown's signing of AB 92 for our ticket diversions. Some things that we're working on in the next few years. This is another snapshot of the SafeTrack study that Bob was talking about, where individuals were asked to report via online survey where they had experienced perceived hazardous locations or collisions, and compared to what they had reported to the police. So we'll be taking a closer look at the results of this study to see what we can work on, particularly within the campus edge, or excuse me, within the campus itself. We're working with our local agencies on the expansion of bike share around the campus. So the San Francisco Bay Area currently has what's called Bay Area Bike Share, and it's mostly in the city of San Francisco. It'll be expanding to the East Bay in 2016, and the campus will be a major destination and central activity center for that program. So we're excited for that to be on the ground next year. We're working with our local business improvement district on the south side of campus on a public realm program, particularly on Telegraph Avenue. Telegraph Avenue has some significant issues and also has some very significant historical relevance to the community. And so being sensitive to all of those needs, we're working on ways to address some of the pinch points on the crowded sidewalks, still allowing for vendor space and other amenities that sort of occur there today. And then we'll also be looking at the area to the south of campus and trying to address some of the areas where one-way streets limit bicycle connectivity into the campus. And we're really looking at innovative ways that we can address those access needs, particularly through protected bikeway or buffered bikeways, protected bikeways, cycle tracks, things like that. And with that, I think I will hand it off with Kathryn.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Kathryn Zeringue, and I am the TDM Program Manager for North Carolina State University. And so today I'm just going to talk a brief overview of all of our pedestrian and bicycle safety programs. So North Carolina State University is the largest public university in the state. We have about 34,000 students and about 8,000 employees. Our campus is located about 2 miles west of downtown Raleigh, and it's kind of divided into 4 smaller campuses. So we have our athletic complex that houses our football and basketball stadiums. Our Centennial Biomedical campus houses our large vet school, and then main campus is really the heart of the university. Majority of our academic buildings are housed there, all of our resident halls, administrative buildings, and student center. But then our newest campus to the south is Centennial campus. This is where we've seen a lot of the growth and development recently. We have a brand new library there. Our corporate affiliates are housed on Centennial, and then the College of Engineering and the College of Textiles just moved to Centennial campus. So our biggest challenge that we face right now is improving the bike and pedestrian connections between Main and Centennial. So now I'm just going to touch on a few infrastructure projects that we've done in the recent years to improve bike and ped safety. So the city of Raleigh did a road diet on Hillsborough Street, and we partnered with them on that project. So Hillsborough is on the northern edge of Main campus, and it's the main commercial corridor for all of our NC State students. Our academic buildings are all in that little cluster just south of Hillsborough. So we have a lot of pedestrian and bike traffic that crosses Hillsborough and goes into the neighborhood north of campus, where we have a lot of our residents and faculty that live in that area. Now, before the road diet, Hillsborough Street was a 4-lane arterial. It was not very bike and ped friendly. We had a lot of pedestrian crash rates, heavy congestion, especially during our peak travel periods. There was no bike infrastructure, and we actually had a pedestrian fatality, and that really caused a public outcry. People in the community and on the university decided that something needed to be done with Hillsborough Street. So this is a before and after slide. So the construction of the project began in 2009, so this picture on the left here was taken right before it began. As you can see, it's not very bike and ped friendly. There was a lot of issues with speeding as well on Hillsborough. And then now, this picture was taken in 2011, right after the project was completed. The travel lanes were reduced from 4 lanes to 2. We installed raised center medians, curb extensions at all of the intersections. We actually have roundabouts on Pullen Road and Oberlin Road, which is just east of the eastern edge of Main campus, and also bike lanes were added as well. So the positive impacts of these improvements, vehicular speeds were reduced. We had a lot more pedestrian traffic. Traffic volumes were decreased as well, and we saw a 23% reduction in crashes after the construction. Oh, and let me just mention that we have phase 2 of the project that I think should begin construction next year, and that will go another mile west on Hillsborough Street. So in 2013, we created a restricted access on our main north-south campus corridor, which is Dan Allen Drive. So now Dan Allen is closed from Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and the only vehicles that can pass through those gates are service vehicles and then our transit buses. We have our own transit system called the Wolf Line. And so the main factors that led to the closure of Dan Allen were that we had a significant amount of cut-through traffic, and we even did a license plate survey, and we saw that a lot of the license plates were not even affiliated with university, either students or staff. And then we were in the process of building new student housing just west of Dan Allen Drive, so we knew that we would have lots more students biking and walking across Dan Allen to get to campus or the student center. So we wanted to improve bike safety and pedestrian safety for those new students who would be housed just west of Dan Allen. This is a kind of zoomed in map of the central part of main campus, just to show you where the gates are located. We also have restricted access gates all throughout the northern part of our main campus, which is where our academic buildings are. So this creates a very bike and pedestrian-friendly environment for all of main campus. So the positive impacts of this project is that it reduced traffic on Dan Allen by 10%, and it actually increased our on-time performance of our Wolf Line routes that go along Dan Allen by 10%. So we've done quite a bit of bike and multi-use trail projects since we've drafted our bike and pedestrian plan in 2011. So just wanted to show you a map of our bike and trail system. We just recently, last summer, installed our first bike lane on Centennial campus. We've also done an extensive expansion of our trail system. We've installed a little over 3 miles of trails on our Centennial campus, and we've improved our connections between our university trails so that we can better link in with the city of Raleigh's network. And then we've also installed quite a few sharrows on campus recently, mostly in the gated areas where we have very limited vehicular traffic, and then also streets with low volume traffic for bicyclists feel safe biking without a bike facility. And then I wanted to show you one of our recent projects that we did this summer. So we have a small part of one of our trails, which is called the Rocky Branch Trail. This trail is our main east-west trail that cuts through main campus, and we have a small section of trail that passes through a small parking lot behind our rec center. So we repaved that area, it was about 1,500 feet. We repaved that area with bright green color-safe pavement markings so that we can heighten the visibility of the trail and the trail users so that motorists can see when they're crossing over the trail. And then I just included a picture on the right here of our new bike lane on Varsity Drive. So now I'll talk about a few educational campaigns that we do to promote bike and pedestrian safety. So the biggest campaign that we promote is Watch for Me and See. This is actually a statewide bicycle and pedestrian safety campaign that's run by NCDOT. So we get all the campaign materials from NCDOT. And this program was first piloted in Raleigh-Durham in 2012, so we've been promoting the program on campus ever since. We partner with the City of Raleigh and the University Police Department, and we distribute all the campaign materials, and then as well as reflective armbands for pedestrians and bike lights. Our areas of outreach, we mostly target students, at orientation, and employees as well at their new employee orientation. We host several events. We usually partner with sustainability and the University Police Department, and we do tabling throughout the semesters. We do wolf line bus wraps and interior bus ads just to get the message more visible on campus. And then the University Police Department, they perform crosswalk safety checks, and I will talk about that in a little bit more detail a little later. The great thing about this campaign is that it really targets all road users. Motorists, bicyclists, and pedestrians are included. Excuse me. Two of our other big campaigns are campaigns that we partner up with the City of Raleigh, and they're called Lighten Up and Tune Up Raleigh. The Lighten Up campaign, it's actually going on right now. It's a fall campaign that focuses on bike and pedestrian safety and being visible when riding or walking at night. And so this is the funding for this program is sponsored by the local transit agency, Go Triangle. And so we're able to hand out a couple hundred free bike lights to students, and we also give pedestrians like wrist lights and flashlights. And then some years we partner with local bike shops, and students can receive 10% discounts on their bike lights. And then in the spring, we do a bicycle maintenance campaign, and it's called Tune Up Raleigh. So this is a City of Raleigh program, and they partner with local bike shops to provide a 15% discount on tune-up services. So we hand out those pamphlets to the university students on campus, and then we also hand out information about how to perform a quick maintenance check on their bike. And since Lighten Up is going on right now, I just took a picture about a week ago. We also tag bikes on campus that don't have bike lights, and so they're just little door hangers with bike and ped safety information, and then information about where they can get lights for their bike. We also do bicycle maintenance workshops. So every month, the NC State Craft Center hosts a 2-part bike repair class, and these classes are a little bit more detailed. You really learn a lot about maintaining your bike. And then University Recreation also hosts weekly open shop maintenance hours. So that's usually every Friday afternoon. And in these sessions, they mostly address little quick fixes like fixing a flat or adjusting your brakes. And both of these workshops are led by our student bicycle mechanics who are actually employed by University Recreation, and they also manage our campus bike rental program, which is called Wolf Wheels. So we also have an enforcement program. The University Police Department does 2 crosswalk safety programs, and these are mostly targeted towards motorists because we do have an issue on campus where motorists are not stopping for pedestrians at crosswalks. So in the crosswalk operations program, usually an officer in plain clothes will act as a pedestrian approaching a crosswalk. And if the vehicle does not stop, then the driver is given a warning or a ticket, and then we also give those drivers the watch for me and see materials. And then the PD also does educational checks, and so this is, we usually target a crosswalk where we've had some issues in the past, and all vehicles are stopped at these checking stations, and so the police distribute the Watch For Me and See materials, and there's no ticketing or anything. It's just purely educational and to provide better awareness for bike and pedestrian safety. And then I also wanted to talk about a few of our plans on campus that have a significant bike and pedestrian safety component. Our physical master plan was originally drafted in 2007, and we recently did an update in 2004. It's called A Campus of Neighborhoods and Paths, and it does a really great job at creating a human-scaled and pedestrian-oriented environment for campus. And there's several projects that highlight creating like a more visible and safe campus. So 2 projects that are actually coming up. We're going to do some additional streetscape improvements on Avent Ferry Road. Avent Ferry sits on the western edge of Centennial Campus, and so there's some student housing just east of Avent Ferry, so we're going to make some streetscape improvements to improve crossings on that arterial. Also, Western Boulevard is a 6-lane arterial that actually divides main campus and Centennial Campus. So we are currently going to be working with NCDOT to build a bicycle and pedestrian tunnel underneath Western Boulevard so that we have safer passage for bikes and pedestrians who are traveling to Centennial Campus. And then we have a bicycle and pedestrian plan that was drafted in 2011. We do touch upon a lot of bike and safety programs, and so, but I'd like to mention 3 main projects that are coming up. So we're going to do a pedestrian scramble at Cates Avenue and Memorial Drive, which is the intersection right in front of our Student Center. We have a very large bus stop there, and so there's lots of pedestrian activity. And then the next project is the Pullen Roadway extension. Pullen Road will be extended to link main campus and Centennial. And with this project, we are currently going to put in bike lanes and a multi-use path. And then we're also working with the City of Raleigh. The city is planning to install a protected bike lane on Gorman Street, and Gorman Street is on the western edge of main campus, and it also links to the Rocky Branch Trail. So this would be a great project where students will be able to take the protected bike lane, get on the Rocky Branch Trail, and then they can also link into the city trail system to bike into downtown as well. And then for our bike plan, so we actually meet annually, and we prioritize a set of bike and pedestrian projects that we want to implement each year, and that is how we were able to build out so many of our multi-use trails on Centennial Campus. Also wanted to briefly mention our evaluation methods. So every other year we conduct traffic counts on all of our campus streets. And right now we are developing a bicycle and pedestrian count program that will coincide with our existing traffic count schedule, so we're able to count all modes really at the same time. We also receive regular crash data from University Police, and then we also work with the City of Raleigh to get crash data on an as-needed basis when we see that there's an issue with a neighboring street. And then we evaluate a lot of that crash data so that we can propose new crosswalk and streetscape improvements. We also do commuter surveys. So every odd year we survey employees and students. This is funded by Triangle J Council of Governments, and we actually worked with a consultant to create the format and the questions for the survey. And each survey usually contains a significant biking and walking commuting section. So we ask a lot of the questions so that we can better understand commuter decisions, see if our incentives are working, and then what is the perceived safety for bicyclists on campus, and then also in the surrounding areas near campus. We also get our modal split from these surveys every other year as well. So that's about it. Thank you so much for listening, and if you need to contact me, here's my contact information.
Great. Thank you, Bob, Todd, and Kathryn for your presentations. Now we have time for some questions. If you have not done so already, please go ahead and type your question into the question box in your control panel, and we'll try to get to all your questions. My first question is for Todd. Does UC Berkeley contribute funding for off-campus infrastructure improvements?
Yes. So the LRDP or Long Range Development Plan Transportation Fund that I mentioned it's an annual allocation for off-campus transportation infrastructure, and so the campus and the city jointly decide what projects to fund using that funding, and typically, well, so far they've all been off-campus because the intent is that they're transportation projects that are of joint interest to both the campus and the city.
All right, thank you. My next question. Have any of you had to deal with pedestrian or bicycle action plans that exceed or contradict state regulations? This attendee is currently at a university that will not consider pedestrian priority crosswalk policies because it contradicts state law. Anyone?
Todd, were you going to say something on that? I haven't myself, really. I've heard these issues brought up, but I haven't personally dealt with them.
I was just going to say the same thing. I know I don't think that issue has really come up on our campus.
Yeah, I don't think it's come up on our campus as well.
All right. I believe this question is directed to Kathryn. Do you have any data on how effective the light tune-up promotions are?
No, I wish that I did, but I don't. I'm actually fairly new to NC State, so I don't have that data, but we do plan on surveying our students who we hand out the information to after the program is over. It's usually a month-long campaign in the month of March, but sorry, I do not.
All right. Thank you, Kathryn. This question also is for you. What types of incentives do you offer students, faculty, and staff for pedestrian and bicycle use?
So we do have a Wolf Trails commuter program, and so for our faculty and staff, the employees who bike and walk to work, they can receive a few free parking passes for the occasional days that they do need to park on campus. They also get free emergency ride home. They can also enter into the regional Go Perk system. So Go Triangle runs a PDM program called Go Smart, and within Go Smart is Go Perks. And so this is an incentive program with like free gift cards to like local bike shops or other local businesses. And so the more trips that you log by biking or walking, the more opportunities that you get to participate in that program. And then we also have showers, bike racks, and for students, students also get a few free daily passes as well. If you're a student employee, you can be in the emergency ride home program. Unfortunately, students are not allowed to participate in the Go Perks program. And we also are starting to give out bicycle benefit stickers, which is a discount program in Raleigh. And so you get a discount at participating businesses if you arrive by bike, or if you have your bicycle benefits sticker on your helmet. And so those are our main incentives.
All right, thank you. Also for you, Kathryn, what is the uptake like for your bicycle maintenance courses, and how is promotion done?
So with the Craft Center is our arts and crafts center on campus. So they mostly teach like pottery classes, printmaking, stuff like that. And so University Recreation has partnered with the Craft Center to provide those programs. So the bike maintenance classes actually get a lot of marketing and promotion through everything is done through the Craft Center. And then we do have a bike rental program on campus, as I mentioned, called Wolf Wheels. And so the maintenance classes are also promoted when students rent bikes or if they come to the free maintenance sessions. And University Recreation has an outdoor adventure center, and so promotion is also done through the outdoor adventure center. And then on our end, we promote both of those classes on our transportation website, on our various social media pages, and within our Wolf Trails brochures and like marketing materials.
Okay, thank you. This question's for the entire panel. I know some bike crash data is collected from police departments, but could you suggest other methods for collecting crash data? It seems that many crashes on campus often go unreported.
Yeah, sure. This is Bob. I'll start. I think the UC Berkeley, SafeTrack, UCLA, and Sacramento State study is really a great example to take a look at, since they compared and used several different types of crash data. They reported crashes, then they did an online survey to collect people's unreported crashes that had occurred, and then also asked about people's perceptions of risk at different places. And so they got 3 different types of data to at least get some better sense of what the true risk was out along campus.
Todd or Kathryn, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, this is Todd. We're looking at the SafeTrack study as well. We also ask questions about perceptions about bike safety on our campus-wide transportation survey. And I didn't mention our survey, but we do it every 3 years. And on that most recent survey, we ask if people had experienced safety concerns when walking and biking on the campus.
Yeah, so we get monthly police reports, and so that's pretty consistent. And then we get data from the city of Raleigh. Usually if we get reports, a lot of people will call in our Wolf line, our transportation hotline. So if we get complaints, then we'll ask the city to give us the crash data for those particular areas. And then, like Todd, we do ask questions about safety issues on campus, and then also the surrounding areas as well. But for our campus students, For the most part, feel really safe biking and walking on campus, but it's the surrounding areas that students have an issue with, that they don't feel safe. And so we're definitely working more with the city of Raleigh now to make those improvements so that people can actually, so we can have more students commute to campus.
All right, thank you. The next question is, does the prevalence of headphones on pedestrians and bicyclists factor into designs, and if so, how?
This is Bob, and I wouldn't say that there's too much research on this particular issue, but I do want to put a plug in for the upcoming Transportation Research Board annual meeting. Our TRB Pedestrian Committee is sponsoring a workshop that's on distracted walking and what we know about it so far. And so, that would include things like headphones, but also mobile device use and other various ways that distraction can impact people's pedestrians' awareness. I do think that it's worth noting that there is a lot of distraction on the driver and on the bicyclist side to be thinking about as well when we're trying to do better research and get a better understanding of how distraction leads to crash risk.
I think that when we're looking at roadway designs on the adjacent streets, we really pay attention to what we're observing on the street. So even if we might not have current research that Bob's working on, being out in the field and seeing how people are interacting with each other is really helpful in informing design decisions. There is a sense that a lot of college students are very connected to their mobile devices, and so we do want to make these roadways as intuitive and safe as possible, and really addressing the speed issue, I think, is key for us, so that if a collision occurs, it's at a lower speed.
All right, thank you. The next question is, for an on-campus bike share program, how is that funded, and where do you get the bikes from for the program? Are they refurbished abandoned bikes or purchased from a bike shop, etc.?
So our program is not really bike share, it's a bike rental program, and that is run through the University Recreation Outdoor Adventure Center, and the University Recreation actually pays for those bikes, hires the student bike mechanics to maintain the bicycles and to provide customer service whenever students are checking out the bikes. And those bikes are, it's more of a rental system, so students can check them out by the day, by the week, or by the semester.
And then at UW-Milwaukee, where the bike share has just come, that's the city's bike share program. It's a joint effort of the city and a nonprofit, and they're managing it, though student fees have helped bring the bike share stations to the campus, and it would have been much more difficult to have those bike share stations be on campus if the students hadn't contributed.
And at UC Berkeley, the bike share program is going to be a regional private program with a private sponsor. So the student fees that we do have to help implement bike share around the campus, it's not a balkanized program. It's part of the regional program.
And this is James Gallagher. I will add, if you want to know more about bike share, we do have a whole page on bike share programs on the PBIC website. I believe it's pedbikeinfo.org/bikeshare. And on that page, you can also access a guide that we helped put out a couple years ago. I believe it's called Guide to Bike Share in the United States, State of Practice, and Guide to Implementation. And you can check that out. It is free as well. I've received two questions about pedestrian counts or traffic counts. And the questions are, have you done any video recording of ped bike interactions when doing your counts? And how do you do your pedestrian counts?
So this is a great topic, and I'll just start, and then I think both Kathryn and Todd have been doing some of this too. So when I've done it in the past, a lot of our work has been documented through the NCHRP 797 guidebook. And so we've done manual counts at intersections, which involves counting pedestrians each time they cross a leg of the intersection, and bicyclists on each approach to the intersection. Basically, that's one version of counting. So you can also count at screen line locations, or essentially mid-block, and so count pedestrians and bicyclists who pass by a particular point and count in each direction. Those both ways of counting can give you useful exposure data that can be compared with the number of crashes, so that you can come up with a crash rate, number of pedestrian crossings at the intersection, or number of crashes per pedestrian crossings at the intersection, for example. One other thing that's often done with those types of counts is that if you're doing them manually, for example, you only can do them for a few hours, 2 to 4 hours typically, and so you may need to expand them out to a longer time period so you can compare the crashes that may have occurred over a year with a one-year estimate of those volumes. And that takes knowing something more about the pedestrian volume pattern across a day, a week, and across different seasons, which can be captured by automated count technologies, and those are described in the NCHRP 797 report as well. So that's worth checking out if you get a chance.
All right, thank you. My next question is, are there any particular policies that have been implemented that have greatly increased the safety of bicyclists and pedestrians on college campuses? That you know of? Okay, I'm guessing no one has an answer for that one.
I'll just say, go ahead, Todd.
Well, I think I don't know that it's a specific where it's spelled out in policy, but our campus at Berkeley's desire to remove vehicle traffic from the center of campus, where pedestrian and bike activity is most dense, has helped for some of the on-campus safety conflict areas. Unfortunately, that doesn't really address where we're seeing the major concerns, which is at the perimeter of campus, where we have big roadways, parking garages, and things like that. I think that the education piece that we have on our campus has also helped a bit with educating cyclists about their behaviors.
And I was just going to say, I think we still need to collect better data over time to really understand if a broad policy has had an impact on pedestrian and bicycle safety. I wouldn't doubt that many have improved pedestrian and bicycle safety, but having the data to very clearly show that, we're still working on that.
Yeah, and I would just echo with, oh, sorry, you can
go ahead,
James. Oh, well, I would just echo on what Todd said, that we don't have one particular policy, but having our planning reduce the amount of cars coming onto campus and reducing our vehicle speeds have definitely made for a safer campus for our bike and ped users.
And also having our long-range development plan be specific that projects consider the needs of bike and pedestrians has at least given us a window in the planning world into making decisions about how to accommodate modes when new projects come on through.
the next question I have refers to education on campuses. Are you familiar with any campuses that have required pedestrian or bicyclist safety education? And if not, what suggestions can you offer to increase voluntary participation of education programs?
Our education program isn't mandatory, but I won't speak to it, but I believe Stanford University has a fairly creative program for getting undergraduates involved in their education program.
Yeah, we don't have any type of mandatory education either, but we are looking into incorporating some sort of skills component into like maintenance workshops. So I was at Virginia Tech before I came to NC State, and we definitely tried having standalone skills courses, but we found that when we partnered them with other programs, either maintenance or a bike ride, that students are more likely to attend those classes rather than just kind of a standalone education workshop.
All right, thank you. Do you know if any campuses use parking policies and pricing to facilitate pedestrian and bicycle access to campus? And if so, can you give any examples?
Go
ahead, Kathryn.
Okay. At NC State, we have a tiered parking system. So any of the, we have a limited amount of parking that is near our academic buildings in the kind of heart of main campus. And so those parking passes are extremely expensive, well, at least for the area in, the southeast United States. And then all of those parking lots are gated, so the only people that can access those lots are the people who have the card access on their IDs and then service vehicles in our Wolf Line buses. So that's how we've definitely reduced the amount of vehicle traffic on in like the heart of campus.
We have a similar tiered parking program on our campus, and most of our parking is outside of the central campus in centralized garages or lots. We recently worked on a pilot study that looked at could we incentivize bike and pedestrian access by giving people a more flexible parking permit so that they, rather than having a monthly parking permit and sort of having an all-you-can-eat pass for parking, that they would save money if they drove fewer days when they didn't necessarily drive, and hopefully they would decide to walk, bike, or take transit on days. But that was just a pilot program, and we haven't made a decision how to proceed with it yet that I know of.
Yeah, and I would just say making the choice to pay for parking into a daily choice rather than a semester-long choice is really important for encouraging walking and biking, because once you've bought the pass for the entire semester, you have some incentive to essentially take advantage of the money you've invested already. It's an easy choice for you because it's available. You're not making the choice to pay $2 every single day. Should I drive and pay $2 or should I bike today?
All right, well, thank you very much. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for questions today. I'm sorry if we didn't get to your question. If you have any questions about a specific presentation, please feel free to email our presenters. Their email addresses are up on my screen, on your screen right now. So go ahead and email them. Once again, the presentation slides are posted online at pedbikeinfo.org/webinars, and we'll be posting a recording of today's program at that site within about a week or so. Be sure to follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/pedbike for updates. Finally, I want to let you know that a very brief survey will appear once the webinar has ended. We'd love for you to let us know what you thought of our webinar today. Thank you to our speakers, Bob Schneider, Todd Henry, and Kathryn Zeringue, and thank you to all of you for attending today's PBIC webinar. Have a nice afternoon.